Welcome back to DIVEBOMB IndyCar Podcast, and it truly is a welcome back this week. First of all for Ellie, who's back from Australia, and IndyCar is back after 4 weeks of us churning out content. Quite good content, bear in mind. If you haven't listened to the Giffen Simpson and Nolan Siegel interviews, do give a listen, as well as our silly season update. For the first time in 4 weeks, we actually have a race review, and my word, do we have a race to review. I think that was my favourite race outside of the Indianapolis 500 this year, and that is certainly saying something with the quality of IndyCar races we get. But anyway, I'm dilly-dallying because we have got to get our way through all the action that happened at Gateway Motorsports Park, or as I commonly call it, the Burrito 500. Everything else is incorrect. So lots of action from the Burrito 500, which was won by Josef Newgarden, and possibly one of the weirdest race victories I've seen in all time. It was a half spin and win, not quite Danny Sullivan, but it was up there as he takes his second win of the season. Incidentally, his other one is the Indianapolis 500, so Newgarden is winning all the thrilling races this year. I don't know how to summarise that race into a sentence. It was a mad one. It was a fun one. A little bit of absolutely everything. And after all that, we get a Team Penske 1-2 and an oval. What a shocker.
Yeah, I mean, expected results, some unexpected results through the field, all happened in a very sort of convoluted way, but I just wanted to say there was so much negativity kind of going into this, and I guess we were kind of part of that. Everyone was part of that. All the drivers gave this race no chance of being good. It was after the great Iowa processions, as we coined them. I think everyone expected the same. We expected the same to happen in Milwaukee and Nashville later in the season. We don't know what will happen in those races, but this has certainly kind of reinstilled some hope, and the package that IndyCar and Firestone brought was exceptional. And what was wholesale negativity and very much sort of outright, you cannot pass, you won't be able to pass, it's going to be a track position race, it's all going to be on strategy. Yeah, there was loads of strategy, but there was also loads of passing. I mean, it was kind of, there was chaos, there was attrition, there was aggro, there was the ability to run the high line, you could actually navigate traffic. It was everything that made up a phenomenal short oval race. It was vintage in many ways. We had 676 on-track passes, 254 for position. 115 of those passes came in the top 10, 44 in the top 5. All records since IndyCar returned to Gateway in 2017. So, and yeah, Newgarden, I mean, he was running up. The Penske cars were all kind of up at the front, flip-flopping with a bit of David Malukas in the equation, but you know, it was an improvement on Iowa. Newgarden, I think he started 3rd, he qualified 4th. It was kind of winning a pit stop really late on. His 2 crew outdueled the 3 crew in the pits, and then after a botched restart, let's say, maybe his fault, maybe not his fault. We'll dissect that momentarily, but he marshalled the end restart really well and kind of just ran away with it in those final sort of 10 laps or so. So yeah, an incredible race, and of course, Newgarden wins it. He always does.
Yeah, sorry, just to go back quickly to the passes, I think we kind of got a preview of how many passes and how exciting this race was going to be just at the beginning. You know, on the first lap, we had Herter who went up six places in one lap just at the beginning. So that kind of goes against everything people was like kind of saying about the lack of passes that might have happened and kind of going against Iowa. So we got, like I said, a little preview of how exciting this race was going to be. And like you said, it exactly was. There was so many, I don't want to say little things that happened, but there's so many things that happened. And even if you watch kind of the highlights of stuff, it's just, there's so much in them. I don't know how many minutes, but there's so much that kind of happened. And yeah, Newgarden, he didn't kind of do it the easy way. It was definitely a kind of fight, kind of beginning to end. And yeah, like I said, the save that he did was incredible to do that. And kind of watching it, I thought he went down more places than he did. And like I said, it was only 2 places, which was incredible as well.
So yeah, on Newgarden's save, I asked him about that, whether that kind of impacts you after that moment happens, but actually he seemed to think it helped him going forward, kind of testing the limits. So I asked him about that, and he was fighting with Scott McLaughlin for the win. So given all the social media discussion about the end of the Bus Bros, I also asked him what his relationship is like with McLaughlin, because McLaughlin had earlier said that, you know, there's absolutely nothing wrong between the pair. So here's Josef Newgarden post-race. How do you collect yourself kind of mentally after a moment like that spin and reset to go again, especially thinking of the speeds that you guys are traveling at? So how do you kind of collect yourself after that to just go again on the restart?
For me, it wasn't too bad. Just it wasn't hard because nothing was broken. I'm getting brand new tires. I have the same great race car, and now, if anything, I'm more savvy because I know where the limit is and I know what I can't do. So I wasn't worried to just get back on it. I knew we could win this race. I mean, I think we had the fastest car in the field, just a little bit quicker maybe than our teammates, and they were quite good. So yeah, I felt confident to get going right again.
And obviously you were racing Scott for the win at the end. The end of Bus Bros has kind of led to this social media speculation that you guys are enemies or something. Scott's just said that's absolutely not the case. So can you just talk to us about what your relationship is like with Scott, even though you're not now doing this stuff off the track?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's natural. Everybody wants to find, I think a lot of people have wanted to pick us apart for multiple reasons this year. So, that's the good thing is that's all external. It's not an internal thing. If you sit down in our environment, it's a really great environment, which is nice. It always has been. Same thing with Will. Like, we just have a good working environment. We work very closely, probably closer than any other team would be my guess. If you were in our engineering room, I mean, we all sit next to each other in a round table the entire weekend, and we work together to figure out, our race cars every single weekend. So it's a great environment.
Right, you're all here for us to discuss the restart, so we won't keep you waiting too long this week. Yes, well, if you haven't seen the crash, Alexander Rossi went flying over Will Power, which caused a bit of a chain reaction behind. I think, was it Graham Grosjean was involved, Jack Harvey was involved, but he sort of had a separate incident in the same incident. It's controversial because Will Power was very quick to blame his teammate Josef Newgarden. He gave a traditional bird as Newgarden came into the pits when the race was red flagged. And it's caused quite a lot of debate. Power accused Newgarden of stopping and starting. In fairness, I think it's quite hard to blame Newgarden primarily. Yes, he left it very, very late to restart, and he was very, very slow. I think that was part of the issue. Surprised IndyCar maybe didn't wave it off earlier. But Power's issue is that drivers are stopping and starting. Newgarden didn't. He was very consistent at 80 miles an hour. There's a lot of debate why this happened. They think the green light may have went a bit earlier, which saw people like Palou jump out of line because he's for the green light, and that's maybe what Rossi saw. From Power's onboard, you can definitely see why people were stopping and starting. It wasn't Newgarden. It didn't look like McLaughlin. It could well be Herta who was responsible. But it all caused a bit of a mess and a lot of unhappy people. Rossi said a few people have come to the Christmas card list. We know about Power's unhappiness. It's all a bit of a mess. I don't really think Newgarden should be taking as much blame as he is. I do think he was going a bit too slow and a bit too late. But other than that, he didn't stop and start. So is it Herta? I don't know, but hard to say.
Yeah, first of all, I urge you to go and have a look at the DIVEBOMB site. We've got a very in-depth feature there with some quotes from Newgarden and McLaughlin, some of the data provided by IndyCar as well. But it was a pretty wild way to cap off a pretty wild race, kind of seeing Power, sort of just striding over into pit lane, furious gesticulation that's rather familiar to us towards Newgarden, and then the F off to Dylan Welch as well as he tried to interview him, which, to be fair to Power, he kind of quickly backtracked on. But yeah, it was a slow restart, but it was a one-time acceleration, which is legal. The throttle was constant at 80 miles per hour is what the telemetry says. So I think Newgarden's feeling that others may have jumped too early. And kind of this considered, I'm pretty hesitant to blame Newgarden, and like kind of a lot of the drivers, at least in the moment, did. I would say it's more on the drivers behind him trying to get that jump. And it has been an issue in the past that, and we saw McLaughlin seem to run a little bit into the back of Newgarden even. Maybe that is an indication Newgarden was going slightly too slow. I think McLaughlin said that it was a bit unnecessary, but Herta certainly blamed Newgarden. Power did as well. It was interesting that Power was blaming the guy at the front and not the guy who kind of rammed into him and vaulted over him. So again, kind of given what the telemetry, etc., shows, the blame going towards Newgarden is harsh, and maybe they would assume the leader's the problem in the moment. But I think, as you say, Dan, maybe it's worth considering that the issue is someone that isn't actually the leader. Like, if Newgarden's going at constant speed, he isn't really in the wrong. Was it Herta who was kind of overeager, had that gap to McLaughlin? Did he jump, and then that made the others behind think, oh, right, we're going here? Newgarden obviously thinking the green went a bit early. but I would put it more on the drivers than the procedure. It's just not entirely clear where exactly it all went so haywire.
I mean, McLaughlin hit Newgarden.
Yeah.
So is he partially to blame in this as well? So
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say so because he was about as close as he could possibly be to Newgarden. It wasn't like he was accelerating and someone in the guys behind react. I think just you're looking at where the gaps are. Maybe that's why Herta possibly is to blame. I know Tom Gamer, friend of the pod, tweeted this. It was an interesting theory. Josef Newgarden, who's been very active on Twitter as we record on Sunday, quote tweeted saying interesting.
I think it's just a bit of like everyone's fault, or not necessarily fault, but I think it's everyone's kind of reaction that caused the big reaction. Just kind of, like you said, Newgarden was going slow, but he didn't slow, if that makes sense. And I think everyone was just kind of a bit close to each other. I think then Power then came out, said that he had to check up in order to not go in the back of Herta. And as soon as he did that, he knew that he was going to get hit. And I think everyone was just kind of, I don't know. I think everyone was just a bit necessarily too close. I know it's like a restart, so that's what everyone's trying to do, trying to get like the advantage for when the light goes green. But I think everyone was kind of, I think Newgarden was trying to leave it a bit too late. Not too late, but he was leaving it later, just try and get the advantage. And then, I don't really know how to explain it. I don't think Newgarden should be getting kind of all the blame that he should be, because it's not necessarily all on him. It's kind of everyone behind him that then caused like the big thing. So I think everyone was just trying to go a bit, not necessarily a bit too early, but I think everyone's trying to go early in terms of when Newgarden was going.
Yeah, and I think jump starts are a big topic in driver meetings. That's one thing Newgarden was saying, and it's been an issue at Indy in the past, for example. And ultimately, it was just a kind of combination of a lot of things. You know, I think Rossi mainly just didn't read the checkup, and you can't really blame him. It's kind of, you're talking fractions of a second here. The drivers can't really do anything. On that, actually, I was probably lucky he didn't actually take more flight. He kind of went airborne. It was probably a hard hit when he kind of struck the ground again, but he was probably fortunate he didn't take off more than it did, his car.
It was like Canapino at Indy last year.
Very similar. Bit higher speed than that strange little incident. But there's just so many prongs to the situation, aren't there? Like Grosjean being caught up. Hunkos had such speed, but they just had such an unfortunate race through no fault of their own. Jack Harvey too, good to see him back, and he was running sort of edge of the top 10. He was on for a possible season best result before being caught up in that. It just leaves kind of you with a lot of angry drivers, doesn't it? I mean, it's fun from the outside point of view. I mean, this aggro going into the final 4 races, it's going to get people putting eyes on the series, isn't it? What is it about internal drama at Penske this season or at the moment? They kind of all seem to be hampering one another's chances a bit too often. Like, you look at Toronto with Power putting McLaughlin in the war, McLaughlin and Power coming together at Laguna Seca as well. Penske also harming themselves, you could say, in St. Pete, whether intentional or not. They were different circumstances than drivers colliding or possibly causing collisions. But however you look at it, it's detrimental for Power's championship for sure.
I think Newgarden was pretty lucky not to hit the wall when he spun, because when I saw it live, I was like, oh, he's done exactly the same things he just done last year. And then tries to go to high side Palou, looks destined to hit the wall. He did a good job to keep out of it. So in some ways, he's actually quite fortunate. I think that caution also helped him to some extent. That was pretty lucky. I thought McLaughlin had a great weekend. Overall, I think he was probably my driver of the weekend. A bit more Newgarden. He was very clean throughout. He took the pole, and I noted to him that's the 4th oval event in a row he's taken at least one of the poles, including the Indy 500 Iowa and Gateway last year. So I actually spoke to him about what that change in form has been on his qualifying form in ovals, as well as a little mention he put in a TV broadcast. I believe in the last 4 visits on ovals, you've taken at least one of the poles. So what has sort of clicked for you in the last year in regards to qualifying on ovals?
Yeah, I think from me and Benny were talking about it, my engineer, like our average must be pretty cool since we've started working together. From 22 onwards, I felt, even 21, I felt strong, but it's just nice to have the confidence in the race car you're driving. The team give me a great car and I'm able to just execute the way I want to. I think I like oval qualifying because it replicates a little bit. It might sound weird, but it kind of does replicate like supercars in some ways, and the top 10 shootouts we used to do back there, and all that sort of stuff. So, getting my tires up to temp and trusting the tires into turn one or whatnot, it's been a strong suit of mine in the past, and probably a little bit more aggressive in that regard. But yeah, I really enjoy it. Love ovals. I think it's a backbone of our series, and have enjoyed having a lot more on the schedule, or at least a couple more this year.
And you said you had some sort of procedural error in your run. Could you just go into detail what that was a little bit more at all?
I can't go into detail, but I made a mistake. But I thankfully held on. I thought that was probably going to be what maybe Will or Palou could have got me on, but yeah, it was just something that as part of my process.
Yeah, I kind of agree with your sentiments, Dan, that this was a superb weekend for McLaughlin. And aside from, the odd error, like you look at Laguna Seca, you look at Detroit, which have let him down. He's had an excellent season, to be quite honest. I mean, if it wasn't for obviously St. Pete, where he finished third, you had Long Beach, where he wasn't running fantastically, but he was probably going to finish in the top 10 before he had a car failure. He would certainly be second in the championship, and would probably be the kind of guy you look to for challenging Palou. And he's almost still the guy, like he's fifth, but he's almost still the guy I look at the moment and think, if anyone's to derail Palou, which looks less and less likely after this weekend, McLaughlin could be that guy. I mean, he's just cracked oval qualifying, like incredibly. Yeah, and McLaughlin was clearly disappointed not to have got the win, but to be honest, I think it was quite telling that he was still beaming in the press conference. He was so happy with kind of how much he'd enjoyed the race, I think, and he's still clinging on there. The end of this championship battle, making some sort of incremental gains, and I don't feel like he's out of it just yet. But soon enough, everyone could be out of it.
Please to give a little mention to Linus Lundqvist. The poor guy has had an absolute sensation. Well, it's not poor, he got paid. We keep saying that. So say someone's poor and they've had a good result. Anyway, it's gone under the radar, even though he's had an absolutely fantastic performance. Everything that's gone on. He was the first one, sort of the alternate strategy. I say that, and then by lap 200, there was about 15 different strategies. So everyone was on their own form of an alternate strategy.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Just while you're on that, that's always a mark of a good race, isn't it? When we have just. I mean, I think I was messaging you guys saying, like, I've got absolutely no idea what's going on here from a strategy standpoint. Dan, you were just like, to be honest, I don't even try. I just watch. And I think that's the stage it got to. It's always a mark of a good race when you have those several tens of different strategies.
Yeah, so Lundqvist was on some strategy at some point. And somehow he had fresher tyres than everybody else at the end on the final restart and got past Palou and Lundqvist. Palou and Herta, sorry. And yeah, ended third for a second podium of the year. His next best result was 12th. This is like Kirkwood's top 5s of wins. It's becoming Lundqvist's top 10s of podiums at the minute. But I mean, fair play to him. It's come at a really good time where the future is uncertain for Lundqvist and Ganassi are thinking about next year because the charter agreement has taken a ramp up this year. And when he's in a tight battle, I mean, the suggestions that either him or Armstrong are going to go to Meyershank Racing, you've got to prove yourself. And I think it's quite significant. Lundqvist has done this on a road course and has now done it on an oval. And it was a quietly strong performance all night. He kept it clean. He took advantage of all the other issues and ended on a really good result. I just find it bizarre. He's still 17th in the standings. It's incredible. He's had such a topsy-turvy year. But sort of adds to another one of the highlights he's had across the course of the year. And look, I'm really pleased for him because it has been a tough couple of races and he's bounced back with a really good result here.
Yeah, I mean, his weekend didn't start off in the most straightforward way, actually. It's kind of a bit of a mini picture of his season. He had an issue with the hybrid and missed essentially the only track time that we got before qualifying. But I think just through the weekend, he recovered well, got that crucial experience under his belt, and yeah, really kind of got into a groove by the end of the weekend. So, I mean, it feels a bit dramatic to call it like a career-saving display, but given how kind of few seats there are for so many drivers, this sort of performance, like we saw with him last year with his displays at Meyershank that got him the Ganassi drive, like these can be huge. And I mean, probably go as far as saying it was a pretty incredible performance. Yeah, I don't know how he got on the fresh tyres, somehow with some strategy, somehow. But the passes on Herta, the passes on, Herta tried to block him, and we'll get onto that penalty call in a short while. But, past his teammate as well, that was a bit risky, given obviously Palou's position in the championship. But yeah, could end up being a battle with Armstrong, maybe for this Meyer Shank Ganassi affiliated seat. And I wonder if we're seeing whether Lundqvist now actually has higher peaks than we've seen from Armstrong, despite obviously his podium in Detroit as well, and a decent, best over race so far for him as well at Gateway. So yeah, we spoke to Lundqvist about kind of two things that you mentioned, Dan, after the race. Basically, his topsy-turvy season, his views on that, and then also how important this performance could be with the volatility that could be caused by the charter agreement. So here's Linus Lundqvist. Linus, can you please just take us through how you feel your rookie year has gone? Obviously, there have been highs such as the podium today and the podium earlier in the year, but also there've maybe been some lower moments as well. So can you just take us through how you feel your year has gone?
I think I touched on it earlier. It's been a year of some good highs, but also some pretty low lows. But I think that kind of goes for a rookie year and a campaign as well. Obviously I've done some rookie mistakes, but I also felt that we've definitely learned from it. And I think as well, like I said earlier, this summer break has been good to kind of take some time to reflect. Because I think before that, it was basically flat out from like end of April. So I haven't really had a proper time to kind of look back and go through everything that you've learned, because everything was basically just preparation for the next weekend. And the month of May was hectic, so it was good to kind of get a bit of a break and kind of let everything settle down. And hopefully now with this momentum, we can finish the year off strongly and kind of show what we learned.
And then kind of looking forward to the future, obviously there's a bit of uncertainty with the whole charter agreement and things. So how important was it for you today to have a result like this to really, again, kind of put yourself in the shop window or prove your worth again, I guess?
Yeah, every day when you have a good Saturday, usually it's Sunday, it's always a good thing, whether it being for next year or just moving forward. Like I said, my focus right now is just, finish the year strong. And like I said, trying to show what we learned from the beginning of the year. I'd like to think that, we've showed when everything comes together that we can be as fast as anybody there, I say. And hopefully, look forward to next year and just stringing it all together and, what we're here all to do, which is to compete for championships.
This has become quite a big race in the course of the championship, because there were some really bad days for some and some really good days for others. So NBC made this weird thing of a championship 5 of Palou, Dixon, Herta, O'Ward and Power. I thought McLaughlin was a bit harshly done by, but that's completely changed. So McLaughlin, as we know, came second. He's now 73 points off the lead. Let's give our credit to Palou. He finished fifth on track, as we said, got promoted to 4th through Herta's penalty. He's managed to avoid all the chaos. He was close to it all day, but managed to somehow avoid everything that was going on around him. And very Palou performance, wasn't it? It's veteran Palou, keeps it clean, brings home fantastic result. Even if he wasn't the quickest car, there were points in the day. You thought he finished 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, but kept it clean. Has brought him a really good result, and potentially, I'd say, a title-defining result. He's now got a 59-point gap to Colton Herta. He finished 5th in the end. We'll get onto his day a little bit later. But that was quite important. Other than them, pretty poor for the others. Scott Dixon, refueled and pitted in the early cycle. We were like, oh, here we go. Scott Dixon alternate strategy. This is destined. And then some caution caught him out, and he ended up being a couple of laps down. So he was pretty much out the running from the midpoint. Then you had Will Power, who we know was caught up in the incident, which obviously he finished 18th at the end. And then Pato O'Ward had some sort of mechanical issue after 42 laps, which has pretty much sealed his fate in the championship, which I think is a bit of a shame, because I know it's impossible to say what happened, but it felt like sort of day O'Ward could get a good result. His car looked pretty quick early on. McLaren, look at where Nolan Siegel finished. They clearly had good cars. Rossi was running well as well. So bit of a shame for overall, because it might have been a day, I'm not saying he could have won, but, you know, podium top 5 was definitely in the cards, which would have kept him in the mix, but obviously it wasn't to be, and that's his championship done. So if we look at the top 6 in the standings, it's Palou 4-4-3. You've got Herta, as I said, 59 points behind. Dixon is now 65 behind, Power 66 behind, McLaughlin is 73 behind, and then O'Ward is 98 behind. So I think O'Ward is now out of it. I think it's pretty hard to topple Palou unless he does have a crash. You know, Herta, Dixon, Power, and I guess you sort of have to put McLaughlin, all have outside chances. But with Portland coming up as well, I think things are looking pretty good in the Alex Palou camp.
No, I was going to say in terms of kind of Award, I don't think he wants to admit it, but I think he kind of knows that he's kind of out of it as well. Kind of after his interview, he was saying he just wants to win races, and that's all he's kind of focused on. And in terms of the championship, I'm paraphrasing what he said, but he's like, I'll just basically see where I come out at the end. So I don't think he kind of believes that he's in like the championship fight. And like you said, he'd have to win a race, at least one race, and then Palou would have to kind of just have really bad races, which we've seen it happen, but it's very rare for him to kind of do that. Even when he kind of has bad circumstances, he somehow pulls it out and then gets a really good result. So yeah, I think it's kind of sealed for Palou unless he wins a couple of races, and I don't know, Palou just kind of disappears somewhere, but that's not going to happen with Palou.
Yeah, I mean, that was a superb drive from Palou, because I think statistically this is essentially his weakest track, and to pick up a 4th place finish, and here we are kind of halfway through this oval swing, and I mean, he's grown his gap from Toronto. I mean, it could have been very different. I think Gateway showed kind of how fast that you can have swings happening. You know, there was one stage early in the race while Palou with an engine penalty was kind of still further back down the order, that I think Power, well, because Power led the race at points, was sort of, you know, within 20 points of Palou as in the points as they run. But obviously with how things transpired for Power, Dixon's strategy strangely not working out. Like, McLaughlin is as much in it now as Dixon and Power, and like 100 laps difference kind of was between Power being 20 points from Palou, and now McLaughlin being as close to Palou as Power. So things do swing quickly. Yeah, I mean, I don't think O'Ward. It's a hard one. I mean, his average finish was like less than P3,
2.6,
which is like really impressive at Gateway. So that was a shame, because the way things kind of panned out in that race, he could easily have been on the podium. So that is a shame. You know, he could have been there. You know, things happen quickly. Just back on McLaughlin, it speaks to the recovery job he's done, that he's now only 7 points further back than Power, despite having essentially those 2 no scores at the start of the season. But yeah, I mean, he's the guy with the momentum, but he's just so far back. And, you know, Herta's got a bit of momentum as well. We've got tracks coming up that are complete unknowns to close the season in the final 3 races. You know, Dixon and Power do have the experience there, but Palou's just like, whenever you think, oh my gosh, like they're going to close on him here, as it was early in the race at Gateway, it never ends up happening. And it would take quite a lot and a couple of incidents really for Palou to be out of the game.
Look, it's still too hard. It's still almost too early to say. I know we've still got 4 races left, but the way things can change quickly, you know, Palou crashed out at Iowa all by himself. Who's to say that can't happen again? So it is too early to say, really.
Yeah, he crashed out at Iowa, but he's still 59 points clear, which kind of says a lot.
Yeah, but you can say that about everyone. Herta crashed at Indy, and he crashed out in Detroit. So, you know, if he didn't make those mistakes, he might be in the lead. Whereas Dixon had bad luck. Road America had that tyre blow, and Alabama had that spin.
There's so many what ifs. Like what I keep saying with McLaughlin, it's been an unbelievable recovery drive, but
you could do it for any of the top 6 realistically, and say, "Oh, if this didn't happen, they exactly." So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, Palou, he did well on the final on the controversial restart, because he seemed to go when the green went, which is why he pulled out of line, which meant he avoided the accident. So, I mean, good reaction time helped him quite a lot in the end. Anyway, let's go through the cautions because there's quite a few to go through. First one was Leg and Carpenter. I mean, I don't want to say nobody really cared, but we didn't really. I think we saw about one replay of it from a wide angle, which Leg got a penalty for. People have seeming to blame Carpenter. It just looked like a racing incident to me. I mean, it didn't really matter anyway.
Yeah,
I mean, Leg was out.
I mean, my first impression of that was that Carpenter, a bit like as we'll get onto with Power and Malukas, Carpenter had kind of actually cut down a bit on Leg, and I was surprised to see that. I mean, I would have said it no call, probably would have been fair. I was surprised to see Leg was penalised for avoidable contact. Saw an issue with Carpenter actually afterwards, I think the front stretch, and it was, he didn't necessarily seem like he was pinning all the blame on Leg. Maybe she, clattered the curb a little bit, lost control of the car. I'm not really sure, but it didn't look like Carpenter was completely clear. And for Ed, that's 3 successive oval races with crashes. I think the fact that he was down there with the 51 coin car, which was struggling for speed all weekend, kind of says a lot about where that 20 car is, and that's now right on the bubble, leaders circle wise, just inside, but by just that one position.
So Catherine Legg was back. We expect her to be back for the rest of the year, and obviously being a British driver, more importantly, a person born in Guildford, we have to root for Catherine Legg across the year. And if you want to root for Catherine Legg yourself, you can head to the Formula Model Shop website and pick up the driver shirt, which has recently been released. It's the elf branding on there as well, so it's a nice little pink and white combo. So it's certainly worth picking up if you want to support Catherine Legg. To do that, you can head to the Formula Model Shop website, which is the best place to pick up your merchandise in the UK and the rest of Europe.
You can use the discount code 5BOMB, or one word, FIVEBOMB, to gain 5% off products on the FMS site. Visit the Instagram highlights on the DIVEBOMB Motorsport Instagram account for links to an exclusive VIP section on the FMS store, courtesy of DIVEBOMB.
Once you've read all the reports of the weekend on the DIVEBOMB website, you can head to our homepage, which has a nice pink link to the Formula Model Shop website, or alternatively, you can head to formulamodelshop.co.uk. Stay
tuned for an exclusive giveaway coming soon.
And then we had the second caution was for, Rinus VK checked up, and then that saw Romain Grosjean hit Carl Kirkwood, who hit Connor Daly, who went into his own spin. Didn't hit anything, which fair enough. And I think out of all of them, Daly had the least damage because Kirkwood's wing was dislodged. I think he had a small toe link issue, which pretty much put him out. And then Grosjean's front wing went. So that was a bit of a shame because Hunkos looked really, really good. Grosjean qualified really well. He started 6th for the end after the penalties. Daly was up there. He looked really good this first race for Hunkos in 14 years since Star Mazda. And yeah, who's the other one? Kirkwood. Kirkwood was again. He looked good as well. So that was a real shame because Hunkos were running really well, and through Rinus VK's little wobble, that race became completely undone.
Yeah, one thing I would credit IndyCar for, obviously when we left for the Olympics break in Toronto, there was a lot of kind of criticism for not throwing the caution quickly enough. But I think in 2 cases at Gateway, we had cars spinning across the track in the case of Daly and in the case of Newgarden, and the cautions were thrown almost instantaneously. So I think where people gave IndyCar a bit of flack for what was quite a difficult situation in Toronto anyway, they really deserve credit for the way they dealt with those incidents at Gateway. Yeah, it was just unfortunate for Hunkos. That's the second time in 3 oval races that they've had cars caught up in an early incident through absolutely no fault of their own. And I guess in both cases they had real speed. I mean, Daly started inside the top 10 as well, which again, that shows what a shrewd decision it was to put him in the car, I guess.
And then the next one was for Kiffin Simpson, podcast curse, spun on the exit of turn 4 after clipping the curb. Rookie error sort of thing. Maybe lost concentration, whatever. That was a bit of a shame. And then we had Newgarden's half spin cause the next caution. Then was the real talking point, other than the real talking point. This is the second talking point. Malukas and Power. Power was going around the outside of Malukas. Then it was a lap. Was it Kirkwood? Might be someone I can't remember. Somebody. And then Malukas got a bit boxed in behind the lap car, and then Power's on the outside. And it's difficult to say. I think Power left him the room, but should have expected Malukas sort of to understeer in the dirt. Yeah, Power's very experienced. You don't need to say that, and he knows how how the aerodynamics work of Indy cars. Maybe should have given Malukas a bit more space. And it was a real shame for Malukas. We knew he goes well here. That was no secret. And he qualified second, which we all thought was better than expected, right? And then he was running really well. Like, he could have well been in contention for the win. I know strategy didn't really fall his way in the end, so maybe he wouldn't have been. But he was certainly in the mix for podium. So it was such a shame for Malukas for an incident which wasn't his fault. And it was heartbreaking to see him in the TV interview. He was in tears. So a real shame for Malukas. We're going to get into his news of the week in a little bit. But his race I don't know what the right word for it is. It was upsetting. It was heartbreaking. That's the word.
Yeah, I mean, I personally pin that on Power. I think. I mean, yeah, it was just a misjudgment, wasn't it? I mean, obviously nothing malicious, but I don't know why exactly he thought he was clear of Malukas. Like, maybe Malukas understood into him ever so slightly, but it was. I think, yeah, the overwhelming thing to come out of it was just a shame, because they were on this different strategy to McLaughlin and Newgarden, who were going to have to come in for a splash of fuel. And, you know, if it wasn't for the caution that those guys caused, then they may well have been fighting for the win, which I guess makes this even more gut-wrenching when Malukas was, I don't think he could have done anything differently. And he was going for a move that could have won him his first ever IndyCar race. And I guess that's why it's so heartbreaking in a way. I think it was just validation of how good he is, and especially how good he is at the Gateway, that he's delivered this performance in a different car to the coin car that he was used to doing it in. I think it was pretty disappointing to hear Malukas say in his interview that Power had come by and screamed at him. I'm not really sure why, because I think Power, especially kind of reflecting on it, will realise, he was at fault. I'm not really sure why he wasn't penalised, to be quite honest. But I mean, I guess the whole Power shouting at him was probably a reason why he was kind of emotional in the interview as well. He was probably a bit spooked, I guess, by that, because those guys have had a good relationship, and Gateway just seems to be the area or the place where Malukas and Penske guys fall out after McLaughlin.
Hard to say that
beef last year. It had previously been a weekend of him putting graphics on his Twitter, probably ones that he'd made for P1 and P2 results in practice qualifying. And I think he clearly wanted to reward the team that kind of gave him that shot back in IndyCar after his injury as well, with the result that he looked kind of bound for. He was running, or it was him and the three Penske cars that looked in like the best bets for the win all day. All day, all night, all day and night, all day, evening and night, the way it kind of panned out. He was fighting with guys that, I mean, he is essentially going to be semi-teammates with next year. Is this a good time to get onto it?
We should get onto it. This is the time. Obviously, the news that David Malukas will be moving to AJ Foyt Racing next year, which, well, was a surprise. Absolutely no way of putting around it. I think everyone expected him to stay at Shank. Maybe a move to RLL was in the cards, but clearly money talks, and there's obviously quite a few reasons. I think the overwhelming one is the Penske alliance. There's been suggestions that Roger Penske actually funded a bit of the move to get Malukas in the car, which would more than suggest there is an eye on Malukas moving up to Team Penske once maybe Power retires or somebody else decides to move on. So certainly a surprising one for Malukas. But with the way Foyt performed this year, you can understand why. And obviously, as I said, huge look at Team Penske for the future. And I know I'm looking 2 or 3 years in advance, but it is an exciting prospect.
I kind of maintain that this was kind of the joint best seat on the market, providing the Shank seat was going to be available as it now is. It's not a forward step as such, but it's kind of equal, given Ganassi and Penske are the two teams that are fighting at the top. And if indeed the MSR-Ganassi relationship does materialize, then I'd put those two teams kind of on a par. So, if I guess, we don't know anything, but purely speculation, maybe there's more a chance that Malukas gets a step up to Penske with Foyt than he does get a step up to Ganassi with Meyer Shank. I don't know. But I would say, the Penske relationship's just as valuable to Foyt as the Ganassi relationship may prove to be for Meyer Shank whenever, if ever, that is confirmed. We don't know who he's going to line up alongside. I think Malukas and Ferrucci would be some lineup. I mean, especially on ovals. But But, yeah, I mean, it depends where the team is with the funding situation there, I think. But has Roger Penske up to fund it? We'll see in a few years, I guess. But yeah, I guess that now opens up the shank seat to one of the probable outgoing Ganassi drivers, whether Armstrong or Lundqvist, unless, Ganassi, I mean, understandably would hold an interest in someone like Rossi. Yeah, it was initially shock, but then I think it's a really understandable move that makes a lot of sense.
Right, running order. We have a lot to do this week, so we will speed through it. Newgarden, McLaughlin, Lundqvist, Palou. We've done them already. Then Colton Herta crashed in qualifying, which was a bit of a shock because probably wasn't on for pole, but definitely a top 4 or 5. And then looks like he's playing the non-existent IndyCar game on lap 1 as he overtakes absolutely everybody, gets to like 10th in no time, and then he's looking really good, and then ends up 3rd as he is overtaken by Lundqvist. He makes quite an aggressive block. Lundqvist gets passed anyway, and he gets penalised for it, which I think, if Lundqvist didn't get passed, fair enough. But Lundqvist got passed anyway, so is there a need to penalise Herta for that? I don't really think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think there's a few inconsistencies in race control still. Like, some things go by that you think. I mean, it always goes back to the VK Rosenqvist at, was it Road America last year? That one's always the one that springs to mind. But also the Power Malukas one a bit as well. I don't understand why that was a no call when, I suppose it was the other way round to like and Carpenter, that the guy on the outside would probably be the one that was penalised. But I mean, the way he kind of threaded the needle with that ridiculous reaction at the start, make up 6 spots on the first lap, and then kind of just, I mean, even really early in the race, he was already kind of in the top 10, right back on par with Palou. And it was, I guess, just a shame for her that those positions were flipped at the end. Obviously finished ahead of Palou on the road and then lost out on that points gain, unfortunately, with the penalty. Yeah, I mean, pretty soon, given kind of the aggressive way he ran the early stage of the race, he was kind of up near the position he probably would have been anyway, and kind of finished around where he would have been regardless of the qualifying crash. So, yeah, great recovery. Numerically the closest contender now to Palou, but again, long shot.
Rosenqvist was in 6th. He was pretty quiet. He almost crashed into Palou in the pits, as we said. He qualified 2nd, but started 11th in the end. Again, we don't really know how he ended up there, but he finished 6th, which was, I thought, was the right result. Nolan Siegel, podcast curse didn't exist for him. We said he'd get a first top 10, and he did in great fashion. Despite a penalty for speeding in the pits, he thinks he would have been on for a podium otherwise. That's obviously all ifs, so we're not going to try and hypothesize if we would have done. But yeah, really, really good result for Nolan Siegel. It was a really strong night. He led 8 laps in the end. He was the lead car in the alternate strategy, even ahead of Dixon for a while. So it was good result for Siegel. That drove really well.
Yeah.
That was a great drive. I mean, it was the first time, as he said to us, that he's been to a track where he has tested, and I guess that paid dividends. He was, I don't think he was too happy with qualifying. He started down at 20th, but he made progress really well in the race. He was cutting it up with the likes of Dixon, Ericsson, both Indy 500 winners, and he was leading Dixon on a Dixon strategy. And then I think they decided to bail, or I don't know whether actually the speeding penalty maybe forced their hand, but I mean, he was leading the race at points for the first time in his IndyCar career. So yeah, it was a good run. And I guess, yeah, I mean, he was thrown, I think, a lap down by that penalty, of course, but the fact that he recovered, and I mean, you've got to think that he probably would have been in the position that I guess Lundqvist was, for instance. Just definitely possibly could have been on for a podium, but still, 7th. Results don't really, they're securely in the leader's circle. He's not fighting for anything particularly meaningful in the championship. He said they'd rolled the dice, and 7th is a really good result. So, yeah, really, really good drive. And I guess the speeding penalty maybe clouds it slightly for him, but I don't think it should, because it was a great performance regardless.
But as you said to us, he's looking forward to next year. 8th place was Marcus Armstrong. I feel like we didn't really see any Marcus Armstrong, but there we are. I finished 8th. That's a good result. I don't think, obviously, with Lundqvist having a good result, probably doesn't shine fantastically, but I know he got a top 10 at Iowa too, but still, his best result on Oval today.
Oh, he got a top 10 at Iowa, did he? I completely
he
forgot.
did.
I was thinking this was his first top 10, so good job.
Yeah. Decent result. I mean, so we didn't see him at all, so it's quite hard to say.
That's
I
pretty good.
Sorry, it was in the VK Connor Daly thing. because he was on the outside of VK, which caused VK to have the little wobble. But other than that, we didn't see him.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good to be fair, because he's still an oval novice. So 2 top 10s and essentially only 3 oval races run, given the issue had in the 500. So yeah, not bad.
And then 9th place, we had a career best for Stingray Rob. The podcast thrive was really true in Iowa. He led 8 laps as well. This must be the second time this year he's led laps at an oval. So is he the next oval expert? I don't know. We'll find out in a few years' time. But I mean, again, we didn't see him, but really good result for Stingray Rob, and that puts him a bit more comfortable in the battle for the leader circle. So that's great news for him. So glad for you, Stingray, friend of the podcast. Well done. Top 10.
I'd like to get his perspective on that if we speak to him again, actually, whether ovals are his most comfortable track, because that's where we've seen his kind of best performances. He didn't look out of place at Indy when he was up front, and he didn't look out of place here at Gateway either when he was out front. There was one point he was ahead of 3 Penske cars behind him, so that was pretty cool to see. But no, he was kind of up there in the top 10 pretty much all day, really, and it was a really nice recovery, because I was worried in qualifying that, oh my word, this could peter out pretty poorly this season. I think it was the second to run in qualifying, and he was 5 miles per hour off the car that had gone before, which was Connor Daly, and I think he was 7 miles per hour off the pole speed in the end. So to recover and really cut it up with those guys was a really good effort.
And running out of the top 10, we had Arenas VK, who's actually on quite a little nice top 10 streak. That's 4 races in a row he's been in the top 10. So props to Arenas VK. I can't find it, but I saw somewhere that he's like 6th or 7th in the overall standings. Let me find that out for you whilst you two discuss about Arenas VK's day, which I thought, again, didn't see him, but off a little wiggle, but good result.
Yeah, I think he restarted after the red flag in as high as he might even have been in 6th. So I'm not entirely sure what happened, whether he was on older tyres or whatever. So no, that's a good run. Again, the disparity at Ed Carpenter Racing between him and Ed Carpenter, I think, is a little bit of a worry. Carpenter was over 2 miles per hour off VK, I think. So not great. Let's just say that.
Arenas VK is 6th in the oval standings this year, which is pretty good going.
Yeah, he's
ahead of Herter in standings. He's ahead of Power. He's ahead of Kirkwood, Rossi, Ferrucci. That's good going. Fair play to Arenas. And then it was Dixon, as we said. Alternate strategy didn't work. He was the first car 2 laps down ahead of Ferrucci, whose day became undone because he, similarly to Siegel, got a pit speed violation penalty, which is a bit of a shame because he's been pretty strong in recent races. Connor Daly ended up 13th, which, considering the mishap he had early on, I thought was a pretty good result. So it doesn't help them in the leaders' circle because Rob did a great result. But better result than the 20 Ed Carpenter car. So
yeah, they're now only 3 points behind the 20 car as well. So that's looking all right. I mean, the 18 Dale Coyne Racing car is on 101 points at the moment. At the 20 car, which is just inside the leader's circle, is 35 points ahead. So it's gone very badly wrong for the 18, hasn't it? Really, even the 51 with that revolving kind of wheel of drivers is on 120. So yeah, the leader's circle battle is hotting up quite a bit, and I mean, Daly in finishing 13th has matched the best result that the Dale Coyne Racing managed all season, for instance. So, given kind of the trials and tribulations of his race, that was a good result in the end.
And then we go on to 14th place, which was Pietro Fittipaldi. I can't say anything on Fittipaldi's day. I'm not aware of anything.
I'll see whether it's one of those. See whether I've got anything there.
There was also actually a penalty for VK, which was IndyCar approved work under red restart at the back of the field. If you didn't,
wait, what?
Grosjean got the same penalty as well.
That is probably why he dropped from 6th to 10th. He would have gone to the back of the lead lap, I would imagine. He wasn't. Oh, sorry, the back of one lap down.
So he got restarted, as did Daly. By the way, Kirkwood also got a drive-through for full service in a closed pit. And
Kirkwood was circulating about 40 laps down.
Yeah, and then Grosjean also got a penalty for emergency service in a closed pit. He got a restart at the back of the field. So that's all the penalties. Lundgaard was 15th, first car 3 laps down. Grosjean was 16th despite his crazy day. Carpenter ended up 17th, 8 laps down. I know he crashed with leg, but that seems a bit extortion. I know his wing changed, didn't he, in fairness?
Yeah,
So.
rear wing. And I mean, given what short lap, I guess it was probably replaced under caution, but yeah, it will have been. But yeah,
still seems a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Palou, Rossi, Harvey, who all had the incident. Malukas had his incident. Kirkwood, who had the dislodged front wing at the start, which just obviously put an end to his day. Ray Hall, who had a mechanical issue midway. He said he had a really good car, which is a difference to last year, so that's a bit disappointing.
He was the best team car all weekend. I mean, to be fair, Pietro had a decent result in 14th, actually. I think Lundgaard still has a bit more to find on ovals, if I'm being honest. He qualified 23rd, which isn't great when you look. Rahal was 14th, Fittipaldi was 15th qualifying wise, so those guys were pretty closely in tandem. Lundgaard was not. So I think he needs to find that, especially because Aaron McLaren, they have good oval cars, so that's something to watch for next year.
And then we finished off with Ericsson. Actually, he was running really well. I thought he could have been the mix of podium or a win, and he had some sort of engine issue, which again was a huge shame because he looked like the strongest Andretti for a while. So that was a shame for Ericsson because he had a tough year, and it could have been.
That was one of his
result.
best. That was one of his best runs of the year, I would say. I think obviously he had the podium in Detroit, but this was proper sort of last year when we were giving this credit to Marcus Ericsson about that he's pretty handy on ovals, but in the race he really seemed to come alive. So yeah, that was a shame. He could have won that race in another world.
And then we had Simpson, who crashed. Ward, who had his mechanical, and then Legg, who, as we know, pulled over. Not pulled over, she crashed. I don't know why I said that.
I don't know what happened there because the car didn't look very badly damaged at all, but she only ran 7 laps. It looked like it was unless something kind of failed during the accident. I would have thought they could have repaired that car. So I don't know what's happened there because if she's coming back for the remaining races, maybe she could have done with a bit more experience given she's not driven an IndyCar that much in recent years.
Yeah, we'll see how that pans out. But that is the race results, and we got to pick some unsung heroes, and there are plenty to choose from this week. We are in loads of supply this week, plenty to choose from. I literally could go whenever you two can decide. Because I've got so many, I'll just pick the two that you don't pick.
The thing is, it's always like, what's the criteria for an unsung hero?
Well, I deem it as somebody who doesn't get as much credit for the day they had.
Because I think Siegel and Rob, should we say, are ineligible because I think they have got attention for their days.
Okay.
Oh, right. I was going to say Siegel, but never mind then.
Well, I'd almost go Lundqvist.
I think that's yeah. In which case, Siegel and Rob are good. I just want to go someone different to Rob, Siegel, and Lundqvist.
There's not many because everyone else seemed to have a different.
Yeah, I want to go someone aside from the obvious. I'm going to go for Felix Rosenqvist because he qualified second, and he could well have been in that kind of gaggle with Malukas and the 3 Penske's if it wasn't for being dropped 9 places for the engine change. So I'm going to go for Rosenqvist because I think his weekend could easily have been very different.
Maybe if I can't go for them, maybe I'll go for. I don't know if he's unsung, but maybe Daly, just for he had that little incident. And
Daly was my other pick.
Yeah, but yeah, he kind of managed to climb. I know he didn't get that much damage, but still, he could have let it affect him like mentally or something. But he didn't.
It affected his car. I think he had 4 damage. Apparently, he tweeted.
Do we have any funny moments?
Oh, I've got a lot of funny moments. I've now started listing them through the weekend. Just anything that I find remotely amusing.
Okay. What's the best one?
Hold on, I need to find them. I don't know where I am in my. I've got so many notes this week. I guess that again is a reflection of the race. So I think one of the amusing things early in the weekend, they did the Highline practice session again, which clearly worked. But we had 3 cars disqualified from Highline practice, which was funny. Rossi, Herta, and Fittipaldi. We had Scott McLaughlin posting a reel on Instagram kind of ahead of the weekend where he was remixing it with the Australian breakdancing entry for the Olympics, which I quite liked. Also, McLaughlin was like, straight after getting pole, he was like back in his bus playing the college football game on his PlayStation. I thought the command was slightly amusing. The guy doing it basically just turned it into a big promotion for Bomberito, Bomberito Automotive Group. Is that what it's called?
Burrito.
Or Burrito, as Dan likes to call it. But Josef Newgarden's Twitter activity the day after the
No,
race was
that
slightly
doesn't
amusing.
count. That's after the race.
Okay.
Disqualified.
Just to mention that though, pics of he's putting pictures of hash browns and dogs and responding to them all, and I just thought it was quite funny. There was one where he was saying, someone was saying something nice to him. He said, "You're tarnishing my bad name" or something. I don't know. Maybe Will Power and Dylan Welch, the F off might take it.
Yes.
To be fair, just to clarify, Power apparently did call Dylan the day after the race to properly apologise. But I thought it was good that he gave him the F off treatment and still went to do the interview actually when he realised that actually I should probably be doing this. So there's a lot of remotely funny, like slightly funny things. Not quite Toronto level where we had.
No. Any of the Toronto ones would have won this week, I think. But
oh, absolutely.
I was going to say mine, I think, is to do with Aaron McLaren. I don't know if it was an Instagram reel or if it was a TikTok, but they got all the drivers to do. I don't know if you know it, but there's an artist called Chapel Roan who has a song called like "Hot to Go," and then there's a dance that goes with it, and they made them do like the dance. It's not like
I think I saw them dancing.
Yeah.
Rossi was barely involved. Norman
and then it was
looked slightly
Seagull at
reluctant.
the end. Yeah, it was mostly Seagull doing it at the end, but it was literally just I was to say hand movements, but it's just arms spelling out "Hot to Go." But yeah, I say that's it.
right, we have some tournaments to go over. And wow, the championship is certainly hotting up. I know the IndyCar championship is not, but the two predicted tournaments are really hotting up. We'll do the podium predicted tournament first of all this week. So we'll go from lowest score to highest score. DIVEBOMB IndyCar writers 0 with Palou, Malukas. 2 points for Tom Gaymore, McLaughlin O'Ward Dixon. 2 points for MFMS, McLaughlin O'Ward Malukas. 2 points for Josh Mason, McLaughlin Malukas O'Ward. 4 points for myself, McLaughlin Newgarden O'Ward. 4 points for Archie, Hurton, McLaughlin Newgarden. 6 points for the fans, Newgarden, McLaughlin Dixon. And 6 points for Eddie, Newgarden, McLaughlin O'Ward.
Oh, I was not keeping up with that apparently because I was not aware.
Right, championship standings. Almost there. So we've got a breakaway 4 here. So in 8th place is the followers. You are on 16. 7th place, Formula Model Shop, 24. Joint 5th, Josh Mason and Ellie, 25. And then 4th place, there's the IndyCar writers in 32. Myself on 33, Archie on 34. And Tom Gaymore still leads the way on 36.
It's tight.
Hotting up. But I was thinking this. There's 4 rounds left. There's theoretically 36 points left on the table. And yet after 13 rounds or 12 rounds, the leader's got 36, which is testament to how unpredictable IndyCar is, right?
Yep, absolutely.
And then the the Fast 6 predictor tournament. You've been waiting a long time for these results. I finally worked them out. Me and Archie went for the same this week. Triple Penske, O'Ward, Palou, Herta. So the triple Penskes are all right. So that's 3 apiece. Ellie went for Newgarden, Grosjean, Dixon, O'Ward, Palou, and Lundgaard. So that's just Newgarden. Now the standings. I am unfortunately last on 36. Ellie is in the mid-range at 37. And Archie's in the lead on 38. So it's very close.
Tight.
Very close. And talking of close, it is Portland is right around the corner. So let's get our predictions in for Portland right now.
And my Fat 6 is McLaughlin, Palou, O'Ward, Dixon, Herta, and Malukas.
Mine is, in no particular order, Palou, Rosenqvist, McLaughlin, Herta, O'Ward, and Grosjean. Because I'm not sure I've put Grosjean yet this year. So
I've gone McLaughlin, Rosenqvist, Palou, Power, O'Ward. I've just realised I put Power twice. Rosenqvist, Palou, McLaughlin, Power, O'Ward, Herta. But there we are. It's very tight. So we'll see what is to come. They're hotting up with just a few races left. We've got Portland next week. 2 weeks after, we're off to Milwaukee for a double header there. First race there since 2015. So very much looking forward to the end of the season. Although I'm certainly not, because then we have 6 months of off seasoning. But that's a different topic for a different day. But yeah, that's what we've got time for next week. This is going out on Tuesday. Now, stay tuned, because tomorrow there will be another episode. I know it's a bit unusual, but it's a very good episode. We won't spoil it. It's a very good episode. So stay tuned on Wednesday for an extra episode, a particularly important one to us. So listen out for that one. Watch it if you want to. It's going to be a really good episode, so please stay tuned for that one. I know 2 hours of DIVEBOMB IndyCar podcast might be too much in a week, but trust me, this week it will be certainly worth it. And then, of course, we'll be back next week to review the final road course of the season in Portland. So thanks very much for watching, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.